Hello, everyone. Welcome into Untitled with myself, Kendall Valenzuela, and of course, Amanda, aka Cooterdoodle. We are so excited to be back here with you post-draft. We have a ton of things to talk about. Amanda, how you doing? How's it going?
Doing better than you, Kendall. I know we were talking earlier in the show. You've got a little house remedy going on, but life's good. Life's good.
Amanda, if anyone hears a smoke alarm or a beep throughout the show, you didn't hear it. I'm trying my best here. Home ownership is not for the weak, and this is dumb. They told us adulthood would be fun, and Amanda, I'm not having a good time. I've been messaging you for the past couple hours saying like, okay, this alarm, I'm taking the batteries out, I've taken everything out. So I hope no one hears it, but if you do, just know I'm trying my best.
And also just know that I did tell Kendall every time it beeps, she has to compliment the Saints. So get ready. Get ready.
Or if you're listening at home, if it's the weekend, maybe you're just relaxing. You go ahead and just take a drink whenever you hear this fire alarm or this smoke alarm, whatever it is. I don't even know, Amanda. That's how flustered I am. What is it? Why? Why is it beeping? Why won't it stop? Take the batteries out. You take it out of the wall.
Deep breath, because we're gonna be good. We have so much to talk about. We're like, this is our first show post draft, Kendall. We're back.
I know, I'm excited. Are you okay, by the way? The Saints, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk.
Were you in a public space? You go out in public to make sure that you wouldn't explode if you were in your house alone?
No, I had a few libations before and I stayed, within my own four walls. I kept it quiet. On Twitter, I was loud, but I kept it quiet.
All right, we are definitely going to talk about that. We've got post-draft risers and fallers for fantasy football, but of course we have to start with the biggest news across the NFL. This is Did You Hear, presented by Bud Light. All right, Did You Hear, presented by Bud Light. Amanda, you ready?
I'm ready, because we're going to talk about tight ends, not rookie tight ends. We're going to talk about George Kittle, because Kendall, did you hear that he got signed to a 4-year extension, $76.4 million? I am thrilled to hear this, but I want to know your thoughts.
Oh, thrilled. I'm thrilled for a number of reasons. First of all, thank you, San Francisco 49ers, for not making us wait until, Amanda, sometimes we were waiting up until, August, a couple days till the season kicks off, and we would sit back and say, all right, the Bosa contract, there's been a lot in the past where we say, okay, when is this actually going to get done? And so thank you, San Francisco 49ers, first of all, for doing this in a timely manner. And I am just as excited as you. Now, the highest paid tight end in NFL history, Trey McBride, that lasted like a couple months, maybe with Trey McBride. That's fine. You still got your spotlight, but George Kittle comes in. Yeah. And I don't know, Amanda, I'm excited just because one, they locked this down early. We don't have to question, everything going into training camp, OTAs, all of that stuff. Second off, I mean, he deserves it, right? He's entering his 9th season. You look at the stats from last year, and we just know for fantasy football, he should be the third tight end taken off the board in fantasy drafts for 2025. You got Brock Bowers ahead of him. You've got Trey McBride, but I think George Kittle, even though, they've got a lot of mouths to feed there. You've got Deebo Samuel gone. Brandon Ayuk is still rehabbing from that torn, I believe, MCL. A lot of things happened with him. So he's still rehabbing. We don't really know if he's going to be good to go for week 1, but he should still get peppered with targets. So I'm really excited about this for George Kittle. What about you?
I mean, you nailed it. Like you said, of course, we know Trey McBride deserved his payday, but Kittle's the veteran. He's been consistently getting better year after year. And you look at the stats, he really only had one down year, and that was in 2020 when he missed several games due to his foot and knee injuries. He's just coming off of 2 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. So I think he's only going up from here. I'm very confident. And then you look exactly at our Fantasy Life rankings across the board. There's no question between any of our rankers on the top 4 tight ends, and Kittle sits there comfortably at 3, right below Bowers and McBride. And it feels right. Like, it makes sense that nobody's questioning it, and they're all in consensus. And, I was a little nervous with the draft, Kendall. I don't know about you, with guys like Warren and Loveland out there, and the 49ers had 11 picks. I was nervous, but there was nothing to be worried about. They weren't going to get a backup for Kittle. It was all fine and good, and they just beefed up the defense tremendously, which makes me even more excited for the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. And again, you're right. He should be going as the tight end 3. Long gone are the days. I think it was last season he was going in the 5th or 6th round, depending on when you were drafting. I know I got him for Scott Fishbowl, and we draft those really early. So I think that was a July draft, and I got him late in the 5th round. And I was like, okay, I think this could work, but it definitely did. So the volume should be there, the targets should be there. We'll just have to wait and see when Brandon Ayuk, if he is on track for week 1. But even if he is, you're still taking George Kittle, like we said, 3rd tight end off the board. Now, Amanda, the big question is, how much does Brock Purdy get paid? Because I read this article from Diana Rossini, and she's like, listen, they're close to making him one of the highest paid players in the NFL in terms of average annual value. That'd be amazing. Dak Prescott's the highest paid quarterback right now. So maybe we get news in a couple weeks that now you not only have the highest paid tight end in the NFL on your team, you have one of the highest paid quarterbacks. They have to win. The Super Bowl window is open.
And I mean, after they beefed up every position, I mean, they even grabbed a wide receiver in the 4th. It just feels right. It feels like they really are situated this year where they can pay the players that they need to play, and they beefed up the areas that they had holes in their depth chart. And good for Kittle. I'm excited, and I'm definitely going to snag him in a couple leagues. I'm not going to lie.
Oh yeah. Except because now we'll talk about the rookies. I'm sorry if you're disappointed though, because it's a teaser for coming up, because that was some of these landing spots for a lot of these guys, these fantasy players, for us rookies, did not land in the best case scenarios here. So we'll continue diving in on that. Let's continue on here. The next Did You Hear, Amanda? We're talking RJ Harvey, and I will say your guy RJ Harvey, because now I know the Denver Broncos are your team for 2025. So just a public service announcement to everyone. If you see Amanda cheering on the Broncos, you heard it here, a few weeks ago. She said that she was going to switch on over. So RJ Harvey in good company. You can see the tweet on the screen if you're watching us here on YouTube. But Sean Payton has only drafted 4 running backs before day 3 as a head coach. Reggie Bush, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, and now RJ Harvey. So how excited are you for this landing spot with him?
It feels great. And look, I know you can't see it, but under this sweatshirt, telling you how intimidating I am, under the sweatshirt is my Broncos shirt. I wore it today just because for the good vibes. But I mean, look, I know all about Sean Payton as a Saints fan. I'm excited because not only does he have a good track record, but you look at these first seasons for those guys that were just mentioned. Reggie Bush, drafted 2nd overall in 2006, Kendall. He had 6 touchdowns, 155 carries, but in his first season, he also had 119 targets with over 700 yards. Incredible. And then you go to Alvin Kamara, who was drafted 67th overall in 2017. Very similar. He had 120 carries in his first season, 8 touchdowns, but he also had 100 targets and 5 touchdowns in that first year. So you know that Sean Payton is he's going to use this running back. The only thing I get a little nervous about, and Kendall, tell me if you've been seeing the same thing online, but the hype is getting real. And so the ADP is starting to rise. And that's when you have to start asking yourself, when is it going to be too early for me to take these guys? Not because you don't believe in them, not because you don't like the fit of the team that they've landed in, or the coach that picked them, but when do you start to worry that they get a little too high? So I looked at the Fantasy Life rankings right now, Kendall, and I don't hate where we have him ranked, okay? So you look at RJ Harvey, and he's slotted at RB 29 around Tyrone Tracy and around Jaylen Warren. I would take him before them personally.
Yes.
But I don't hate that landing. I do think he's going to climb a little bit before drafts in August. That's where I get nervous.
Yeah, 1,000%. Right now, I see that he's on Underdog. And again, these Underdog contests are really just getting started. So this is also going to change. I want everyone to know that. And we know, Amanda, that on Underdog and in these drafts, wide receivers are pushed up a lot. So take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I will say RJ Harvey is going around, he's RB 21. So that puts him around Quinshon Judkins, who I think we're talking about today, James Conner, David Montgomery. So he's getting expensive, but that also puts him in the range. If you go guys ahead of him, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara. So he's in this range where a lot of people know that he's probably going to get this big workload. And that's, I think, the thing with the Denver Broncos. They were one of those teams where we just circled them on draft night and said, any running back they take, we're going to draft a lot of, because it's such a wide open backfield. I don't think, though, Audric Estime, we can count him out. Jaleel McLaughlin, I still think they're going to get some work. But for anyone that doesn't know RJ Harvey, like, you'll look at him and you'll say, oh, well, he's really short, but he's well built. He's 205 pounds. He ran I think 4.4 140 at the NFL Combine, and he's a skilled pass catcher. That's the one thing that we love in fantasy football. And Amanda, what's the one thing, as you know, that Sean Payton likes to do is he likes to create more targets for his running backs. So if he's going to use him like we've seen with the Saints, prior, and he really is this home run hitter that is a skilled pass catcher that can, be that elusive running back that Denver's been kind of waiting for, sign me up. I'm excited. So it's expensive, but honestly, RB21 and then you get into James Conner, David Montgomery. I think he's clearly in the 0 RB range, where if you want to wait and he's the first running back you take off the board, a little bit risky because we just don't know, but it's understandable because he's, very talented and he landed in a great spot.
And I can't get out of my head either, like, the idea of Bo Nix. Everyone said that, they reached last year in Denver, and then he outperformed so many of those rookie quarterbacks that went before him. And so I'm like, maybe Sean Payton still got it. You know what I mean? It's just hard for me to break my connection to him, even though I kind of had this kind of love-hate relationship once he left. But I don't know. I feel like maybe he knows something we don't know. And I do think he's going to see a lot on the ground and through the air. So I'm excited. I'm going to take him in a couple leagues, especially PPR, half PPR leagues. I could keep going, Kendall. I could keep going.
All leagues we take. Well, he had better, I just keep teasing this, but he had way better landing spots than some of the others, where RJ Harvey is going to get work immediately. And for some guys, like when we talk about Amarian Hampton, he's still going to get work, but you have, a Najee Harris there where it might be a better pick dynasty, a long-term pick where you could still see some of these guys. Same with some of the receivers, like, hey, this might be a better dynasty pick. But with RJ Harvey, it just feels like, he's going to go in there. He's going to just be kind of the center of this backfield. And that's something I want, Amanda, because last season I skipped on a lot of the big, Saquon Barkley's. I took a bit of Derrick Henry, but how I like to draft is 0 RB. So I was looking, it's like that SpongeBob meme where Squidward's looking out the window and I'm like, oh, I probably should have drafted a lot more Saquon Barkley or anyone else, because I felt left out. It was okay, but I felt left out.
But you won't be this year because you're getting RJ Harvey, right? So you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
All right, Kendall. Let's switch. I mean, this was so exciting to talk about, but I gotta switch it up for you here. Did you hear that the Browns signed Deontay Johnson for a 1-year deal? I'm scrunching my nose. I'm scrunching for those that are just listening, because I don't like this locker room, Kendall, not one bit.
I was trying, because, we like to be a little bit optimistic here. And I was trying to find any nice things to say. And listen, could Deontay Johnson surprise everyone? Sure, because you look at the depth chart and you say, all right, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Deontay Johnson. Who else? David Njoku's there, right? They get Jerome Ford, they get the rookie Quinshon Judkins, but I just, from the top down, we're going to be talking about their quarterbacks, I don't necessarily like it either. You can tell yourself there's a path with Deontay Johnson, right? You could say, all right, well, there's not a lot of other guys around him, talented guys around him. Jerry Jeudy finally had his big breakout last season, but that's with Jameis Winston. So is that going to happen again? That's a question for later. And then, Amanda, it was just drama with Deontay Johnson last season. Like, he bounced around with 3 teams. It was the Carolina Panthers, it was the Baltimore Ravens, it was the Houston Texans. And, he got suspended for a game for refusing to play in December against the Philadelphia Eagles. And then he was, mad about his target share with the Texans. So he was cut. It was just like a weird drama-filled offseason. So why not, Cleveland? Go ahead and get that guy and let's see what happens. I just shake my head. I'm just like, really? Maybe he's changed, though. Maybe he's grown up over the offseason and he's good to go. But I'm not going to bet on that for fantasy.
No, I mean, maybe he has something to prove, I guess, but it's just like, kind of like you said, the track record. You have this pattern where he was cut by 2 teams within the span of a month last season. And so, like you just said, I'm nervous about it. Is he even going to stay on the Browns? Are they going to cut him at some point? I mean, I get that he was frustrated with Houston. He only had 4 targets and 2 receptions, but he only played 2 games with the team. And so, I mean, he was probably still learning the playbook and had things going on. And Then, the Ravens being suspended, not even wanting to play week 13. For me, I don't like it. I can't imagine that Browns fans are happy with the way that some of these decisions have been made, and the locker room just feels icky, and I don't like it. I just don't like it.
Yeah, poor Brown. Like I say this almost, I feel like I say this every week, but I'm like, poor Browns fans. I think it's time, if you've been thinking about it and you're like, wow, I just really can't get behind this organization for many, many, many reasons. Now it's time. Where would you recommend they go, Amanda? Because you took the Broncos. What's another fun? The Lions seem too chalky. Everyone's a Lions fan, but I think that could be, the vibes are just way better over there.
They are, but you know what? You know who we'll talk about later that I think is a fun one is the Raiders. I think the Raiders.
Ooh.
If you're looking to jump ship and you're like me, you want to be a bandwagon aficionado, I would go with the Raiders. I think that might be my next one. If the Broncos burn me, I'll just jump on over.
You're just jumping to new ones now. I kind of love that for you though, because you deserve happiness, and I feel like the Saints, besides Rashid Shaheed, they haven't given you that in a little while. So you deserve a season of fun. I'll just say this too: Elijah Moore, by the way, going over to Buffalo, since we're talking about random wide receiver signings right now. Bills are signing Elijah Moore to a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million. That was per Adam Schefter. He was with the Cleveland Browns last year, so that's the other reason I bring it up. Caught a career high 61 passes, 538 yards, 1 touchdown. So it's not great, but shout out to our CEO, Elliot Christ, who now he can cheer for him on another team. So shout out to him. That's really the only win.
Yeah. We'll see if he buys the jersey. That'll tell us if he really, really believes,
my gosh. That would be hilarious. Where does he have to finish for us to make Elliot buy a jersey? Top 30 wide receiver in fantasy?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not happening.
That seems fair.
He can put his money away.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. All right. This last one, I'm going to throw to you, but I know we're going to talk about Tyler Shuck here a little bit later, but I did want to say the quotes that we've seen from him, the tweets and everything. Tyler Shuck, quote, "I will die on that field for y'all." At least he's coming in with a good attitude, right? He's like, I'm going to be, and that's what you want, maybe from potentially your franchise quarterback. Again, we're going to talk about it, but at least he's coming in with the right attitude. Like, I'm going to save you. I'm going to fight for you guys. So you have to be happy about that. Question mark?
Yeah. I'm starting to erase my question mark. I was a little nervous. I'm sure you saw me in the Slack channel during the draft, but he's embracing our culture so much that I'm kind of becoming excited and I'm nervous about it. But even the fact that in his post, he says y'all, I'm like, all right, checks off a box right there. If you notice in the image that was just up there, he had a song playing by Lil Boosie, who was born in Louisiana. So a little check mark right there. And then his first New Orleans meal, it's all over Saints Twitter, how Carr went to Chipotle for his first. But Shuck went to get oysters at Drago's, which is a big deal in New Orleans. So there's another check off. He's just embracing the culture. He's ready to be here. He's calling it his home, and I think he's all in. So the fans are starting to warm up to it. At least I know the ones that I talk to are.
And you, maybe.
And me.
Tyler Shuck jersey incoming, just to add to the wall.
If he gets that touchdown to Shaheed in week 1, well, he won't be the starter in week 1, let's be honest. But whenever he does start, if he throws a touchdown to Shaheed that's more than 30 yards, maybe so. I'll think about it. Okay,
perfect. Ooh, some oysters sound really good. When we were in New Orleans, when all of us were there and we all met up for dinner, we had I had alligator. That was really good. I kind of miss the food. I want to come back, like obviously to see you, but the food that you guys have I'm glad. I think I said this when I was leaving and talking to you. I was like, I'm glad I don't live here, because that would be, I don't know how you don't just eat everything in sight. It's amazing.
You do. Every event is just, here's the food we're going to have. Come eat it. That's the event.
Oh my gosh. I need that. I want that. All right. They're like, listen, if we're talking about food, we're going to move on here. They're like, fine. But Tyler Shuck, maybe we're going to be all in on you. We're definitely going to be talking about the Saints depth chart here in a little bit and what we think about the quarterbacks. But before we do that, I just want to say that this was Did You Hear? Presented by Bud Light. Right on the buzzer, Amanda. That was from them.
We're getting good.
All right, fantasy football fans, sure, NFL season may be long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it. And all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. All right, Amanda, continuing on here, we're doing the biggest draft depth chart shakeups. Wow, say that 5 times. I think I wrote that. And this might have been when the alarm started going off and I was like, what is going on? I can't even focus. I don't know how I got there, but basically we're going through like 3's a crowd, maybe 4's a crowd even, because we are talking about some depth charts that did get shaken up for better, maybe for worse here after the NFL draft. And the perfect place to start is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And unfortunately, their wide receiver. I say unfortunately, long-term, Amanda, this feels like it's going to be okay, but Tampa Bay did what I was not expecting, and they added Emeka Egbuka, Ohio State wide receiver, rookie, number 19 overall in this year's NFL draft. So the shakeup really and the 3's a crowd conversation is really because he joins a room with not only Mike Evans, but Chris Godwin, and both are supposed to be, Mike Evans obviously came back last season, but Chris Godwin is supposed to be on track to play in week 1, but this feels like a little messy and not great for the overall fantasy value of him for 2025.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you look at what's going on here, and Chris Godwin is expected to be back week 1. So that's extremely exciting. Yeah. We know they signed him. They extended for a 3-year deal, $66 million with $44 million guaranteed. So it doesn't seem like the team is in doubt about his ability to show up this season and further beyond. But is it possible that Egbuka is here as maybe an injury insurance policy? I don't know. I think I see it more as he's coming in to kind of fill in the gap for Mike Evans when he leaves, because he's on his final contract year. So that's what I really, like you said, I think long term, that's what the Bucs are trying to do here. I love, though, when you look at all these different teams, we just talked about a few guys who 3 teams in a year, or they get cut year after year, moving on. But not with the Bucs. Chris Godwin's been there since 2019. Mike Evans has been there 11 straight seasons. They are very committed to the wide receivers. And so I do think they thought long and hard about this decision. And sure, there's 4 of these guys there. For fantasy, it might make things a little tricky. But for the team as an NFL organization, I absolutely love it. And I think this is something that's going to propel them to continue to kind of rule the NFC South.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Like, and this is one of those tough conversations where when we talk about, like, let's say Justin Fields, we're like, we love Justin Fields, but it's, oh, by the way, it's for fantasy football, because in regular NFL terms, people are like, what, Justin Fields? It's the same thing with Emeka Egbuka, because for fantasy, we're a little bit disappointed, but I only say disappointed for the 2025 potential output, because beyond that, Amanda, I'm with you. I think, Mike Evans, like you said, 1 year left on his contract, and Chris Godwin, both of those guys really are unfortunately getting older. So we always talk about the age cliff with wide receivers specifically. And by the way, Dwayne has an amazing article at fantasylife.com he wrote about a year ago that I still reference, because it has really good points in there where it's just like, once you start to see examples, once you start to get just those little examples of injuries coming up, that's when we can start to try and predict that age cliff. And so not to say either of them are going to hit that, but Chris Godwin's injury last season was brutal. And when he was playing right before he went down, I mean, he was averaging a league high 7.1 receptions per game, which was also a career high for him. So he was on track to have an amazing season and an amazing fantasy finish. So for Egbuka, I do think, unfortunately, we never want it to happen. If an injury were to occur, he would obviously step up into this big role. He played, a 4-year career, right, for Egbuka in college, played 3/4 of his snaps in the slot. And he was kind of deployed like Jackson Smith and Jigba, former teammate of his over there as well. So there's a way at 95th percentile in separation percentage per Dwayne McFarland's rookie supermodel there's a way for him to just become amazing, but it might not be this season. Now, I think too, Amanda, Dynasty, I want a piece
Oh,
of him in Dynasty. If you have a chance to snag him and you don't have pressing needs at wide receiver and you can wait potentially, that's where I also want to get him. So I'm still going to be drafting him, but unfortunately it's not going to be as high as I thought it would because of the landing spot. But I still want a piece of him just in case.
yeah, you nailed it. I mean, with Jalen McMillan, and we saw how he flashed in those
Yeah.
final like 5 games and kind of filling in when those guys had those injuries, he looked good too. So it's not as though he didn't fulfill the need for the team and now they had to kind of support with this pick in the first round. I really do think they're looking towards the future because they have guys like Bucky Irving. Baker Mayfield has done incredibly well with the Bucks. I mean, that's a guy that many teams had kind of given up on, and he's had career seasons the 2 years with Bucks. So I love it. And like you said, I just think it's not a matter of will he become a big contributor. It's just when, and it's not going to be immediate, but that's fine. I think as far as the team goes, they're going to do great. And it could be a Super Bowl caliber team.
Baker Mayfield right now, if I told you QB7 off the board, are you taking him at QB7? He's going right after Patrick Mahomes in that spot. Or is that too early for you with Baker?
For the upside, I think if you put me in a situation where it was Mahomes or Mayfield, I'm taking Mayfield. I really am. I'm not going to take Mayfield over guys like Burrow, but I'll take him over Mahomes. I'll take him over Murray. I'll take him over Knicks. It's too exciting. You look at what he did these last 2 seasons in Tampa Bay. He had, like I said, career year. He was 4,500 passing yards last season, Kendall, 41 touchdowns. Like that's insane. And it's so exciting. And people, I feel like, keep sleeping on him. So now his ADP is, I think, where it needs to be. He's finally being respected after, his Browns, Panthers, Rams eras that didn't go so well.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, he was doing that, to put it really nicely. He was doing that without Godwin and Evans for a portion of that season. So McMillan stepped up. Pour one out. I'm sorry, Jalen McMillan dynasty managers, because this was not a pick that you enjoyed, but he was doing it with him and with Kate Otten. So I'm with you. I think Patrick Mahomes, you could flip him because you and I draft so much. I'm probably going to sprinkle both of them into especially some best ball drafts just to make sure I have exposure to both. But it's looking really good for Baker Mayfield for 2025. Not necessarily looking as good for the Browns quarterbacks. Look at that transition. No. I was trying to be nice, but there's no other way to do it. Perfect. You've got Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett. They drafted Gabriel, they draft Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur Sanders was that big surprise during the NFL draft, Amanda. Slid into day 3, pick 144, traded with the Seattle Seahawks to get that pick. And so this is a mess. And I'm not even mentioning Deshaun Watson because when we talked, Zach Jackson came on SiriusXM a couple weeks ago and he was basically telling us, he's the reporter for The Athletic for the Browns. And he was basically telling us, Deshaun Watson, maybe there's like a sliver of a chance that he comes back, but he wasn't really projecting that. So talk about, this is technically 5's a crowd, which is very crowded. And to be honest, I did not hate this Shedeur Sanders pick because at some point you could look at the board and say he had to have been the best player on the draft board for a lot of teams, and he continued to be passed up. So I did not hate this for Shedeur, but the question for me is, I still think Joe Flacco is the week 1 starter. And then it's a question mark after that because, there are obviously 5th round picks that are cut during training camp and we see it all the time. So that it's just one of the questions of who's going to really rise on this depth chart. But in my gut, I feel like Joe Flacco's week 1. But again, Amanda, you could tell me in mid-July that he's been beaten out by Shedeur Sanders. And I'd be like, yeah, that also makes sense to me as well.
It's messy. I hate it. This whole situation makes me again, sorry, Browns fans, it doesn't look good. And when you talk about Watson, the only thing that really is relevant here is that he's this big mistake where they had this 230 million guaranteed money sent to somebody who didn't perform. And now you're having to start over. I mean, look at this quarterback room, given what they did and how much money they put towards it. It just hurts to see it. And like you said, could go any direction. Matthew Berry even said that Shedeur Sanders could be the week 1 starter, but he could also not even make the team. That's how wide of a range of outcomes they have in this quarterback room, which is absurd to even consider at this point. And so it's frustrating from a fan perspective. I have to imagine it's frustrating for these coaches because your job's on the line and you have all of this stuff going on. And then when it comes to cutting, you can't keep all these guys on the team. So what
No.
do? Do you cut Pickett? Do you cut a 3rd round pick instead of the 5th round pick? Like, it's going to be a strange situation that I'll keep my eyes on, but I'm not drafting any of these guys at all. I do think Flacco starts week 1, and that's the only thing I'm confident about. Nothing else.
And we hope that it's Flacco from 2 years ago when he was with the Browns, because the Joe Flacco from last season with the Colts, we were like, oh, okay, this isn't as fun. This isn't as fun as he was comeback player of the year or something weird like that 2 years ago with the Browns when he led him to the play. So it was just, it's one of those things where which guy are we getting from Joe Flacco? And yeah, it's basically a big sigh of like, I will say for Cleveland fans and everything that I read, they really did have a good draft though. But Amanda, it's the point that you made where they have to recoup as much as they can from the loss that they have with Deshaun Watson. Not only giving him a big contract, but making it fully guaranteed, set them back years and years and years as an organization. And so to build around that is really tough as a team. So when you're able to make a big trade like that for the 2nd overall pick with the Jacksonville Jaguars, yes, you give up on a Travis Hunter and you're not able to get him on your team, but you were also not a Travis Hunter away from winning. That is not what you needed there. So to be able to get that added value with the extra 2nd round pick, the 2026 first, they could go into next year. And with that 2026 first round pick from Jacksonville, they could draft another quarterback. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if we sat there and they had a top pick for next year and they said, well, now is the year to go get a quarterback. I heard a Manning is coming out here in a little bit. So it's one of those things where I do feel really bad, but they have to do as much as they can to help the Deshaun Watson stuff. And it's just, again, I feel bad. I like the Raiders call out from you. I think that's where they should go.
But look, I will say this, as far as teams that had the ability to take the risk on Sanders, like you said, given that they're in this big quarterback hole, go for the guy with upside. And if it doesn't pan out, it was really cheap and it doesn't matter that much. And next year you can swing at it again, So it's not the worst thing they could have done. I just don't like it. I don't like it. Anyway,
it's better to cut a 5th round. Yeah, it's better to cut a 5th round pick than, a 2nd or a 1st. We're like, oh, we've made a mistake and we've spent all this draft capital. So that's all I'll say. That's all I'll see there. But just a mess. Same with the Saints, but I feel a little bit more optimistic here because Derek Carr, by the way, I thought it wasn't funny, but I was reading because Derek Carr comes out and says, I've got the MRI to prove that I'm actually hurt, which I was like, I didn't know we were going that far to think that you were lying about it, but thank you so much for letting us know. So now, Amanda, you've got a quarterback room where you look at it and you say you've got Derek Carr, who might be questionable for 2025, Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, and one Jake Haener. How are we doing? How are we feeling? 4's a crowd here, but what are your expectations? Who do you think might start?
Mickey Loomis has come out and said that Carr remains a starter when healthy. Do we trust that? I don't know. But I will say, Kendall, if you were on my side of the internet, people were doubting the shoulder injury. And so he kind of did have to come out and say it because a lot of Saints fans were very much, things just came out, the news came out and it broke in a very strange way, being that they had no idea and then they clearly knew about it for a long time. So I will give Carr his roses there. He kind of had to come out and say that he proved it with an MRI, even though that feels icky now to hear it. But it sounds like surgery is possible. Although Carr has come out and allegedly said, I think through his brother on an interview, has said that Carr wants to play. And so it's possible that he does rehab and not surgery because he wants to get back on the field sooner than later. So that supports, I guess, that he is all in, and it maybe takes away from this idea that he doesn't want to be a bridge quarterback. It's going to be very murky, Kendall. Like, I don't know how to feel because I don't know the information that I'm being given and how truthful it is. However, I will say this. If you look at the last few years, the Saints spent a 4th round pick on Jake Haener in 2023. He was winless on the games that he had to start when Carr was out. 2024, they spent a 5th round pick on Spencer Rattler. He didn't do so hot either. Now this year, 2nd round on Tyler Shuck, and it's the highest pick that New Orleans has used on a quarterback since Archie Manning at the 102 in 1971. So that has to mean something. I do think he's going to start at some point this season. I feel bad for Spencer Rattler because I don't know that he was necessarily given what he needed to work with. And so maybe he's not going to get the shot that he deserved to kind of prove himself in certain ways. But I do think Shuck might be the future. And he's, like I said earlier, he's fitting into the culture. And I think the fans are going to give him a chance. I really do. I know some don't love it, but I think we're going to warm up to him.
I was going to say, you sound so excited in your voice. I can tell that you're ready for Tyler Shuck season. You're like, I guess we're going to go this way. Listen, I agree with the Rattler part. I think is the most interesting piece to this puzzle. And maybe it's just me looking too much into it. But of course, if Derek Carr is good to go for week 1, he's going to be the starter. He's going to play. Mm-hmm. Spencer Rattler is interesting because he did go 0-6, right? He in his starts when he had to go in when Carr was injured in 2024, he went in there 0-6. But I don't think it was under the best circumstances, right? Your head coach gets fired, and then you've got all these injuries. So he's wasn't working with a lot. So I'll be curious between Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, that there feels like there could be a battle there. And then you go into, 3 quarterbacks you're taking into the season. Sorry, Jake Haener, I'm really not going to put you into that mix, but maybe you could surprise us all. But yeah, it really does feel like maybe it's in Shuck's favor right now. I was also reading that, he's spent a lot of time with Saints coaching staff this offseason. It was the Senior Bowl, it was his pro day, it was pre-draft visits on April 11th. So they do know a lot about him. And so they were willing to kind of, I don't want to say take a risk with Tyler Shuck, but Thor didn't think that there was conversations that he was going to go for, the big first round pick, like he was going to be this top 10, guy. And it was crazy that it was getting to that point. But yeah, I don't like it at all. Is your biggest hope, Amanda, that Derek Carr is just fine and that he is ready to play week 1? Like, is that the best case scenario for you with this Saints team?
As a human being, yes, I don't want him to be hurt. But My thing is, I want him to want to be here. And there's just reasons that I've read that seem like maybe he doesn't. I will say this last thing before we move on, Kendall. Ian Rappaport said that the New Orleans Saints believed in the draft that Shuck was the most pro-ready quarterback in the draft. And that means something to me. Why do they need the guy that's the most pro-ready? Because they want to put somebody in there because I think they don't think Carr is going to be ready week 1. Why else would they do that? They're not trying to build for the future. They're trying to get somebody who's ready to start now. So I don't know. That makes, like you said, that makes me worry for Rattler as well. I don't know. Listen. We'll see. This is going to change so much over the next few weeks. I know it. Next few months.
Just give the ball to Rashid Shaheed, and Amanda will not care who you are. If you're feeding Rashid Shaheed, let's just get it done there. The last one here, because we haven't run out of time yet because we're doing amazing, and we're right on this clock. Giants quarterback situation and who we think could be the starter for them. Looking at it, Giants quarterbacks, they drafted Jackson Dart. I put in the rundown, what are we doing here? So now they have Jameis Winston, they have Wilson, they have Jackson Dart. My immediate reaction was Russell Wilson is going to be, and I think they've come out to say this as well, that Russell Wilson is going to be the starter. And then, Jackson Dart, if he improves or if Russell Wilson is just not that good, I could see Jackson Dart going in there, Amanda, not honestly as early as week 6, week 7, because that's an organization that's also on the hot seat and they need to win. So if they don't think that their best chance of winning is with Russell Wilson, they're going to pull the plug on that immediately.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, look at the money they're giving him. He has a 1-year deal, $10.5 million, everything guaranteed. So that's their starter. You have Winston in there, 2-year, $8 million. I think he's the fun backup that you can rely on if you're in a pinch that you need to throw somebody in. But Jackson Dart is going to be their future. And I'm sorry, Tommy DeVito. I hope you're ready to move. You're going to have to get cut. They got to trim this, right? They can't keep all 4 guys there. So maybe DeVito gets to go to their practice squad or become a backup somewhere else that needs it because he's at least started in the NFL before. But if I was him, that's really the biggest worry right now is where's he going to end up? He's got to get cut.
But he's fun for the, memes and stuff. So I did find this quote, by the way. Dable did say that, that it really is going to be Russell Wilson. He's going to remain in the top spot on the depth chart. And then, like I said, Amanda, if they start losing, then that's the conversation of when does Jackson Dart go in there? I think the biggest question we had with Dart and that Thor Nystrom always pointed out was that the system he played in at Ole Miss wasn't amazing. So I think he has the traits to be okay in the NFL, but he's going to have to learn that playbook pretty fast. So we should expect Russell Wilson and then maybe Jackson Dart sliding in there. The Seahawks aren't on this list, Amanda, so I'm just happy with it. I know we have Sam Darnold, but for the Seahawks to get away with this and not be on the post-draft decline of depth charts is amazing for me. So I just have to throw that out there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm taking little wins wherever I can get them. Before we move on, let's hear from our friends over at Bud Light.
Hey, you're not actually allowed to drink in a beer commercial?
Since when?
You gotta wait till it's done. Oh,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, let's go through some positive things here, Amanda. We have to talk about post-draft risers. Let's talk about the guys that actually did land in good spots that we're excited for fantasy. Because so far it's been, Tyler Shuck and quarterbacks, and it's just been blah. So let's get into the good guys here. Tetairoa McMillan. How? I don't want to say excited because it's still the Carolina Panthers, and I understand that. And people are going to look at this and say, you guys are getting excited over Bryce Young, but maybe, Amanda, we are getting excited over Bryce Young. He now has Tetairoa McMillan. They took him right off the board. They needed to get that man any help that he could, so they did it, and they used the 8th overall pick. Should we be all in with Tetairoa McMillan in fantasy drafts for 2025?
I mean, what do you mean by all in, Kendall?
Are you drafting him?
Sure, later, a little bit later on. Yeah, because
Okay.
he's going to see targets. He's going to be the guy, right? A lot of people, what I thought was interesting is a lot of people got nervous. They thought the Panthers were going to go defense first. And thankfully, they didn't, throw Bryce Young to the side there and not help him out, because the next wide receiver up, Adam Thielen, I mean, he's fine. He's got an injury history. And Kendall, at kickoff this season, he's going to be old enough to run for president. Like, they needed to make this move, and they needed to get Tetairoa McMillan in there at 108. So I'm thankful for Bryce Young that they got him some help. And look, is he going to be good? I don't know, but he's going to be better, because it's not like he has that much to improve upon. Like, he got 15 touchdowns last year, so the year before that, 11 touchdowns. So even if he gets 18, 20, 23 touchdowns, we're going to say, look at this guy, look how great he improved, But as long as he's throwing the ball to McMillan, I think there is going to be an upside here for the entire offense. I just worry that this one player doesn't fix it all. It just doesn't put the Band-Aid on the entire thing.
No, they're not winning a Super Bowl because they have Tet McMillan there. I'll agree with you on that. I'm excited, because we always chased volume in fantasy. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that we are getting the last half of 2024 Bryce Young instead of the first half before he was benched. First of all, that's what we need for this to work out with Tetairoa McMillan. But no matter what, he's going to be getting the targets. We talked about getting peppered with targets with George Kittle. I mean, it's on the up and up with Tetairoa McMillan. We have him projected at Fantasy Life right now, 123 targets for 2025. So I want any piece of that, because that he's going to be an immediate impact player. He's this big-bodied X receiver, and it's just something that they needed. So Bryce Young, safety blanket, Tetairoa McMillan, just finding that connection down the field. That's kind of what I want. But I agree, if he gets really expensive, I'm going to pull back and say it is still the Carolina Panthers. They have a lot of work everywhere else. So this is not, Tetairoa McMillan is not, Super Bowl bound for this team, but we do love the volume alone with him for sure.
So I'll tell you this. Can I give you a little? So looking at Fantasy Life's rankings, consensus rankings, I'm going to tell you some guys that we have ranked around him. And I just want you to tell me if you think it feels right. So we've got Marvin Harrison, Rashee Rice, Tetairoa McMillan, Courtland Sutton, Devonta Smith. Do you like it? Do you feel like it should be a little higher, a little lower?
Those seem right, because where do we have him in the rankings overall?
We have him 25, wide receiver 5, 25 overall.
Okay. 25.
Now, some
I think that
rankings,
seems right.
Some rankings have him as high as wide receiver 18. Others have him as low as wide receiver 36. I'm more on the low end there.
36? Who has 36? Who hates Tetairoa McMillan?
But
Name
18
names
feels
right
too high
now
for me. 18 feels too high.
I think the sweet spot where I could see, because we do rankings and we'll update them as the months go, the weeks, days go on, right? So we could get more news. I think you're right, though. I would put him around 20, 21. I think 18's a little high. 20, 21, 22, depending on where he's going. Right now, he's 23 over an underdog, which might actually be the sweet spot, because I don't know if I'm taking him over a Mike Evans. I don't know if I'm taking him over a DJ Moore. But after those guys, I could tell myself Rashee Rice, we're still waiting on a lot of things with Rashee Rice, one of them being a potential suspension coming down. So that's something we have to watch out for. Xavier Worthy, I think he's right there as well. And then Devontae Smith, I think that's the sweet spot. So I'm in on Tetairoa, not at 18, but not at 36. Name names.
Right.
I know you don't want to, but that's too far. We're going too far with it.
We know he's going. He's going to catch some balls. He's going to get the targets. He has to. So at this point, at least you have a comfortable reception floor. You know what I mean? But is he going to have the big plays? Is he going to have touchdowns? That's where I start to get nervous.
Let's do what about CJ Stroud? Amanda, last year was not good with CJ Stroud. If you drafted him in fantasy, you were severely disappointed. There was a point where I remember taking calls with Adam Ronis on SiriusXM, and we had to have serious conversations about just dropping CJ Stroud, trying to find someone else, on the waiver wire, because that's just how bad it was. But for the Houston Texans, they did upgrade a little bit. Not only did they get Christian Kirk, but then they go out and get Jaden Higgins. They get Jalen Noel, who, again, Jaden Higgins will be ahead of Jalen Noel. And again, Christian Kirk, that's not a bad spot. So CJ Stroud now has, better pass catchers. You have Stephon Diggs out of the picture. Unfortunately, man, that Tank Dell injury makes us feel like he's not going to be out there for 2025, which is so unfortunate because we do love him, but you have to figure that he's not going to be out there. So when you look at that, and of course, a Nico Collins, how much do you like this offense now that they added those two receivers in the draft?
I like that it's not the Aaron Rodgers complaint situation where he's like, just get me a wide receiver guy. I mean, they saw that he needed it and they went out and got it twice. They got, round 2, round 3, pick some wide receivers for Stroud. It does make me nervous for Tank Dell. Like, how seriously is he, his path to recovery? Like, is that in jeopardy when he comes back? What's that going to look like as far as these guys being able to step up into his role? That makes me nervous for him. But as far as CJ Stroud, it makes me very excited because he has absolute weapons across the board in different positions. I do worry about John Mechie too. Like, sorry, buddy. I think you're going to be the odd man out. And so, Tank Dell, I hope you recover. I do get nervous that you're not going to have a big spot to come back to because these guys could step in. And that's where I get nervous. But at least they have some weapons. They did what they needed to do to build around him. And Jaden Higgins, I'm excited to draft Jaden Higgins. Same. I really am. Like, it's going to be fun. So I'm not all out on CJ Stroud. I think given the fact that the team has noticed what he needed, I'm going to give him another shot. I'm ready. Yeah. I'm not ready to, say I'm all out.
I'm with you there. I'm going to buy the dip as long as I can on CJ Stroud, to be honest, because if we look at the receiver room and we say, okay, this is supposed to help elevate everything. And they did plug in a lot of holes that they were missing during the offseason. So I think with CJ Stroud and just on offense alone, when you look at Higgins, you say, all right, he should be with his draft capital too. Maybe wide receiver 3 range in fantasy football right now is probably where I'd be taking him because again, I'm including a year 3 bounce back from CJ Stroud, and I'm saying, all right, the offense is going to be elevated a little bit. So I think Higgins, that boomer bust wide receiver 3, and then with Jalen Noel, I think it's more wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. You're not going out of your way, but you're saying, hey, if injuries happened, he could give you some good, fantasy days, especially in best ball. So I know that Ian comped him in that range with Rashid Shaheed and Keon Coleman. So there's kind of that, path there. So I think Jalen Noel, is one that you're not necessarily going out of your way, but Jaden Higgins definitely. And I'm back on CJ Stroud. So now I'm back on CJ Stroud and Kyler Murray. So I need one of those guys to work out, Amanda, or else it's just going to be a really long season. I know.
All right, Kendall. I think I'm leaning Stroud over Murray, but we could talk about that later.
That makes sense. All right, we'll talk about it. Let's go through some fantasy fallers now, though. Unfortunately, we do have to, going into the fourth quarter. Well, we won't end on a horrible note, but we do have to go through some fantasy fallers. And I think one of them is obviously Najee Harris, running back for the Chargers. He signed a 1-year deal with them. And for a little while, Amanda, we were like, hey, love it. Najee Harris season, RB1, let's go. He's going to do great. And then they go out and they draft Omarion Hampton, which again, I love this pick for them because I just think that Omarion Hampton's going to be really good in the NFL. But for Najee Harris, not necessarily great. I don't think Najee Harris is going to go away. He has, 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's never missed a game in his career. We know that that man is durable. But Omarion Hampton, while he might not take over the backfield immediately, there was a quote from Dwayne McFarland saying he wouldn't be surprised if we go into fantasy championship weekend or start the fantasy playoffs and he is the lead back in that backfield. So that's the one thing with Omarion Hampton. You might have to wait a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be that long. But Najee Harris should still be involved.
Now, I read an article on this website called fantasylife.com by this person, Kendall. I don't know if you know her, but she said that this could be the cheap version of Detroit's David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And I love that comp. And the idea of one of them's really going to just kind of ground and pound it, and the other is going to have these other quick moves there. But I do think that Najee Harris is probably the guy to start off, and then over time it's going to peter down as Hampton takes over a little bit. But I think it'll probably settle where, like you said, maybe it's this Montgomery Gibbs situation, this 1-2 punch that the Chargers are trying to copycat the Lions. And I don't hate that because we saw how both of those succeeded in fantasy. And we saw how it also opened up the field for the quarterback, and they got a lot done on offense. So it makes me more excited for the Chargers in general. But Najee's only on a 1-year contract. So that's where I get a little are they going to keep him around?
Exactly. That's again where when you look at Dynasty, people might look at Omarion Hampton and be like, I need someone that's going to contribute right away. But Dynasty, you're looking at Omarion Hampton and saying, yeah, I know that he is going to long-term. And I even think, like I said, I could see it, week 9 of this season where we just see a complete flip. But Najee, just for how durable he is, he's not going away. And we like Najee in fantasy. I thought this was going to be his year, but it's not. It feels the same way too when we look at, can we just really quickly, can we talk about Cam Skattebo? I know that we're pressed for time, but Tyrone Tracy, a little bit of a loser coming off the weekend. I just love anyone that's listening. Just know that I love Cam Skattebo. I am totally biased. I went to Arizona State, went to one of the best games that I've ever watched in my life in person, going over there to Georgia, watching them take on Texas. That was the best game of my life. And they should have won it, but they didn't, and it's totally fine. It's not on my mind at all. But I really do love Cam Skattebo for the Giants here. I know Tyrone Tracy takes a hit. I still think it's going to be, a 1A, 1B Thunder Lightning type of situation. But for Cam Skattebo, his pass catching is good. He's easy to root for. So I could see him getting a lot of goal line work over there, which is a little bit unfortunate because I did really like Tyrone Tracy last season. But this does take a hit to, just where he sits in fantasy rankings right now.
So do you see it more as a committee here, or are you drafting Tyrone Tracy? Are you passing? What are you looking at as far as?
I'm drafting him, but I'm going to draft 100%, 90% more Cam Skattebo. Again, I'm biased, so I do want to throw that out there that I'm totally biased. But Cam Skattebo, when you just look at everything that he did in college, I pulled up some of these stats, right? So Arizona State, of course, he averaged nearly 4 yards after contact per rush attempt. This guy is a bowling ball beast, gaining 970 yards after 970 yards after contact. So he's not going down at first touch. He's forced the 4th most tackles, 39 rushes, more than 10 yards. It was just everything that he did in college was amazing. I do think that can translate to the NFL. It's going to be tougher. I don't think he takes this whole thing over. They're still going to use Tyrone Tracy. They're still going to use Cam Skattebo, but I like Cam Skattebo, the pass catcher. I like Cam Skattebo at the goal line more for this Giants team.
And they're going to need him. They have some ifs at quarterback here. So what are they going to do as far as throwing the ball? They're going to need a guy that can run. And is he going to be the goal line, just busting through, 2-3 yard touchdowns? I like it, Kendall. You've got me all in on Skattebo. You've been talking about him for weeks. I'm very excited.
I just need it to happen. All right. I know that we're again pressed for time. I need to do the one overtime prediction for the future here, Amanda, because we didn't do overtime the last time. So which one do you want? Should I throw you any of them? What week? This is a good one. What week does Stephon Diggs start to complain about targets? What week does that happen if we're predicting the future?
So I don't have the week number, Kendall, but I looked. They play the Bills home and away. So whichever of those comes first, That's
Okay.
going to be the week. That's it for me.
Okay,
What do you
I
think?
like that. Oh, I'm going to copy you. I was just going to say whenever he just doesn't get the targets from Drake May and he's going to go, I am this offense. But I do like that call out. Who is last one here, and then we'll wrap it up. But who is the week 1 starter for the Colts? Because I know that we weren't able to get to some of the tight ends. That's the big question with Tyler Warren. Can he overcome the quarterback competition or the bad quarterback play in that offense? Who's the week 1 starter?
I feel nervous saying this out loud, but I'm kind of thinking Danny Dimes might be the week 1 starter. Is that crazy? Like, just think of the offseason. If things don't go the way that they want it to, and they're starting to see signs that it's like, oh, it's going to be the same thing over and over again. I don't know. Maybe they just start fresh.
I hate it here. What are we? Anthony Richardson, come on, but we're rooting for you. It's that meme. It's like we were all rooting for you. You need to do this. You need to have a better completion percentage. You just need to be better. We're rooting for you here. So I'm going to say Anthony Richardson, but I understand how some people could say Danny Dimes there. All right, that was our show. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us here today. As always, fantasylife.com. All those articles 100% free, so make sure you go and check them out. For Amanda, for Kendall, I appreciate you hanging out with us. See you here next time. Thank you.